I'm Ethan Taylor, a man who once thought love and happiness were the natural course of life. But everything changed just 1 week before my wedding. The living room door opened in front of me, and I froze. Suddenly, everything seemed to stop. A strange moment abruptly seized the space. It was the image of Hannah, my fiancée, standing before me, her appearance dazzling, wearing a mysterious black cocktail dress, a string of pearls, sheer black stockings, and high heels. Honestly, she looked beautiful, but there was something else that confused me. Her eyes were not like they usually were. They weren't filled with love, but with avoidance, not the warmth I was used to. Why I felt this way, I couldn't explain immediately, but a strange sensation began gnawing at my heart. Hannah, what's wrong? I stepped inside, smiled, and intended to hug her as usual. She quickly avoided my gaze, her voice trembling a little. I didn't expect you home so early. What's going on? I stepped closer and gently kissed her cheek. I just planned to come home early to prepare for the honeymoon. Ah, you surprised me. She looked down at the floor, her voice sounding uneasy. So, where are you going looking so beautiful? I smiled, but doubts began to creep into my mind. I'm going somewhere. She shook her head, as if not wanting to elaborate. Don't worry, I just need a little time to relax. Where to? I asked, trying to remain calm, but anxiety began to rise within me. She hesitated. The answer didn't come immediately. A hotel downtown. I'll be there alone. The silence between us lingered. So, you're going alone? I asked again, unwilling to believe what was unfolding before my eyes. Yeah, I'm going with a friend, she finally sighed, offering an answer. At that moment, I began to sense the unease. Who is this friend? What's their name? I asked, but she just stood still, her eyes focused on the window, avoiding my gaze. I'll be with a friend, she repeated, almost as if offering an excuse. Is it a man? My question suddenly shattered the silence. She lowered her face, her lips trembling. It's not like that, you misunderstood. She seemed flustered. Not like that? I stared at her, trying to suppress the anger rising inside me. You're going alone 1 week before our wedding, and you expect me to believe it's not like that? I just need time to think about everything, her voice weakly pleaded, as if begging for forgiveness. I couldn't listen to more. Everything inside me exploded. You want to spend the whole weekend with a man, and you expect me to believe he's just a friend? You don't understand, she said, her eyes filled with tears, and then she lowered her voice. I can't explain. I just need time to figure out this relationship. What am I to you? I yelled, anger I couldn't control. What is this relationship if not betrayal, if not lies? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What could this time she needed possibly be for? To sleep with another man while we were preparing to get married? My heart shattered into pieces. With a brief glance, she didn't answer. Her silence was more painful than any words could ever be. Then, suddenly, I said decisively, you will tell me his name. Who is he? She lowered her head, her eyes showing complete hopelessness. After a few seconds, she whispered, Scott Parker. He works with you. When I heard the name Scott Parker, it felt like a lightning bolt struck my heart. Scott was my boss, and now he was with my fiancée? Anger surged like waves crashing on the shore. My boss? I shouted. That bastard? You slept with him? A man older than me. My boss? Caroline said nothing, just stood there, her hands gripping the door handle, as if guilty. You don't deserve me, Caroline, I said, each word cutting into my heart. With this, our wedding will never happen. I turned my back and walked away, not looking at her again. She didn't call me back. And just like that, we were over. I don't know how long I stood there, but when I turned back, Caroline had disappeared. The door was still open, the light from outside streaming into the dark room, as if she had left without saying a word. But I couldn't leave right away, couldn't let go of the emotions flooding my heart. To do what? To find back the peace I had lost? Now, I only feel pain, a numbness from the inside. A part of me wants to leave immediately, to do something to dispel those emotions. But another part, a weak and confused part, wants to keep her here, to get an explanation, to hear a sincere apology. But then I remember the moment when she admitted her betrayal. Scott Parker, the man I trusted, the one I had seen as a mentor, had secretly been with her. It was a heavy blow to my self-esteem, an unacceptable shock. I sat down, my eyes glued to the table where she had written a brief explanation. Next week, I start a new chapter in my life, and I have to do this before it's too late. Just one short sentence, but it felt like a wound slashing deep into my mind. What she called a new chapter was, in fact, a betrayal. My eyes stared at the paper, but I couldn't understand why she thought this would make our relationship stronger. How could betrayal turn into a positive turning point for our future? How could a marriage stand if there was no trust? The questions echoed in my mind, but the answers never came. I stood up, took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. But when I looked at the ring on my finger, I couldn't help but remember all the beautiful moments we had shared. Could everything really end like this? Could I still love someone who had hurt me this much? The answer was clear in my heart. No. I walked back to the living room, where all the memories of us had once been present. The wedding photos we had picked out, the plans for the future. All those dreams now seemed like a cruel joke. And then I saw something. The phone she had left on the table. It had to be hers, no one else's. She had left it behind when she hurriedly left. I didn't want to do anything, but my hands automatically picked it up. I unlocked the screen. A series of messages popped up, exchanges between her and Scott Parker. Sweet words, secret plans. I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything was clear. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had secretly planned it all along. Everything had been calculated. This betrayal wasn't just a mistake, but a deliberate decision. Anger surged up inside me again. But this time, it wasn't the anger of a betrayed lover, but that of a man whose trust had been trampled on. This feeling was too much to bear. My hands trembled, unable to control my emotions. I wanted to do something, but I knew I had to stay calm. Suddenly, the front door opened again. Footsteps echoed, and I saw Caroline walk in, her face tear-streaked. She didn't say anything, just stood there, looking at me like a criminal awaiting judgment. "Ethan, you can't do this." Her voice was soft, but there was no sincerity in it. "You can't just leave me like this. I love you, but I need time. I need to do this so we can start over." Start over? I couldn't hold back the sarcasm in my voice. "We have nothing to start over. You've ruined everything, Caroline." She moved closer, but I stepped back, not wanting to be pulled into this game anymore. I know I was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. "I love you, but Scott said I had to do this to prove that I have control over this relationship. I just wanted to be equal." A part of me wanted to laugh at this nonsense, but I felt like I was trapped in some cruel game. Everything was wrong, from her meeting with Scott to the ridiculous reasons she gave. And now, she was standing here, asking me to forgive her for all her wrongdoings. "You think I'll understand?" I could barely speak anymore. "You think I'll forgive you for those reasons? This betrayal will never be forgiven." I turned to walk away, not wanting to hear any more. But then my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Scott is dead." Those words made everything around me feel like it was collapsing. The moments that followed no longer mattered. Scott's death had changed everything. Caroline looked at me, her eyes like someone who had just had everything taken from her. "I can't believe it," I said, feeling my body crumble. "All of this for one man, and now we're faced with a tragedy." She couldn't say anything, just stood there, silent as if there was nothing more to explain. This scene, the silence in the cold room, truly made it impossible for me to continue living in the shadow of the past. It was all over. The shock from the message made my heart stop. I looked at Caroline, her eyes no longer filled with pleading or regret. She just stood there, stiff as a statue. My mind was spinning, unable to believe what was happening. Scott Parker's death. The cost of this betrayal was too high. I can't do anything anymore," I said, my voice trembling. It felt like I had just been thrown into a bottomless pit. "Think about what has happened, about Scott's death. Think about the ending that none of us could change." Caroline moved closer, her hands trembling, her eyes full of tears. "Ethan, I don't know what to say to fix everything. I don't want anyone to die because of this, but I can't live without clearing up my feelings." "I can't forgive you," I replied, my voice firm. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed everything we built, all the trust one had in you. Now what do you want? Do you want me to forgive you?" Caroline was silent, her gaze as if she wanted to say something, but the words couldn't come out. It was too late. No words could fix this. Scott was dead. My life was shattered. Only I was left in the ruins. I turned and walked away, not wanting to look at her face one more time. I headed straight to my office, where I usually sit when I need some time alone. My whole body felt heavy, my mind in chaos. All the plans, all the dreams of a happy life with her now vanished into thin air. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from an unknown number. It was the police. I answered with a trembling hand, my mouth dry as paper. "We need to talk to you, Ethan." The officer's stern voice came through the phone. "We have information about Scott Parker's case. His wife, Loretta, is in custody." "Loretta?" I asked, my voice sounding like it wasn't my own. She killed Scott?" "Yes, she did. She shot Scott multiple times. We need you to come to the station to provide information." The officer's words struck me like another shock. I couldn't believe what was happening. Loretta, Scott's wife, someone I never thought would be involved in this, was the one responsible for his death. Why did everything have to come to this? I stood up, not saying a word. In my mind, everything was chaos. I couldn't stay here anymore, couldn't look at Caroline again, couldn't live in this space anymore. I needed to go. I didn't even know where. But I had to leave. I had to get away from here. The police asked me to come to the station to provide information, but in my mind, there was only one question. How did everything get so bad? When I arrived at the station, I met a middle-aged officer with a cold look in his eyes, as though he had witnessed too much suffering in his job. I sat down across from him, saying nothing. The heavy, gloomy atmosphere filled the room. "We've discovered that Loretta knew about her husband's affair. She found out after receiving an anonymous letter from someone at the company," the officer began. "She knew Scott had been secretly meeting with Caroline all this time. She was furious, and that led her to take extreme action." "So, Loretta killed Scott because of this?" I asked, but the answer had already been in my mind for some time. The officer nodded. "Yes, after she found out, she decided to confront Scott. She prepared a gun and acted at the right moment." The scene in the living room was horrific. Scott didn't have time to react. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't imagine it. A wife had been in so much pain that it led to this, but I also couldn't help but think of Caroline, of the way she had made everything worse. Everything was so complicated. Scott's death wasn't just his tragedy, but the result of a series of wrong actions, not just from Loretta, but from Caroline and from me as well. When I returned home, I couldn't stop thinking about everything. Caroline was gone, and I had completely lost her. But I also knew that what I needed to do was keep going. Leave the memories behind and continue on my own path. I couldn't go back. I didn't love her anymore, though deep down, I still felt a pain I couldn't explain. Now, I had nothing but what I had lost. But there was one thing I was certain of. I would never go back to the past. The price of betrayal was too high, and I had paid enough. Now, it was time for me to stand up and find myself again. I didn't think that after everything was over, I would still feel like I was living in a nightmare. I thought time would help me forget it all, but the truth was I couldn't. Every morning when I woke up, I still felt empty. The world around me seemed to stop, and I didn't know where to begin. The memories of Caroline, of Scott, of the awkward conversations in the living room, of the betrayal, all of it still haunted me. But then, in a moment, I realized I couldn't live in the past forever. I had to let go, not because I had forgiven her, but because I needed to save myself. The hurt had been enough. The anger had passed, and now I needed to continue living. I returned to work, not because I felt I could focus on it right away, but because I needed to do something to ease my mind. Work provided me with a little false sense of peace. The long hours, the tense meetings, the piled-up projects, everything seemed to help me forget the pain inside. But by the end of the day, when I returned to the empty house, the loneliness crept back in. I had tried to reach out to friends, family, but no one could really understand what I was going through. Everyone thought I had done the right thing by breaking up with Caroline, but only I knew what this felt like. I couldn't lie to myself that everything was fine. It wasn't fine, and I didn't know when I would ever be able to return to myself. One day, while I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, an unexpected encounter happened. I saw a woman walk in, holding a hot cup of coffee, her eyes seeming to search for someone. She stopped, looked at me, and I recognized her instantly. It was Sophia, my current wife. She stood there, almost like she didn't know what to do next. We had never really talked about the past, never brought up Caroline or what I had been through. But in Sophia's eyes, I could see an understanding. She knew. She knew that I was still trying to come to terms with the betrayal and Scott's death, that I hadn't yet escaped the shadow of it. "I'm not sure what I can do to help you," Sophia said as she sat down across from me, "but I'll always be here." I looked into her eyes, the faint light in them offering me some comfort. Sophia was not Caroline, and I couldn't love her the way I had loved Caroline. But one thing I knew for sure, Sophia hadn't betrayed me, hadn't caused me the pain Caroline had. She had come and chosen to stay, even though I wasn't the perfect man. And then, as days passed, I began to realize that life isn't about what I've lost, but what I still have. Although I can't forget, I also can't live in the past forever. And Sophia, she was the important part that helped me get through it. She didn't need to be a replacement for Caroline. She was just herself, and that's all I needed. One evening, while I sat in my home, Sophia and I talked about the future. We spoke of the unknown, of desires, a strange sense of peace. Sophia asked me, "How do you feel about Caroline now?" I didn't answer immediately. It was all over, and what I felt about Caroline now was no longer anger, but regret. I regretted what we could have had, but I couldn't go back. "It's just regret," I finally replied, my eyes looking out the window, where the sky had begun to take on the colors of sunset. "I can't change the past, but I can decide the future." Sophia didn't say anything more. She just smiled and gently held my hand. That was the comfort I had been seeking, but not from Caroline, from the woman who was here with me now. In the end, I realized that trust is the most valuable thing in any relationship. Once it's broken, it's not easy to rebuild. But I also realized that if you keep living in the past, you'll miss the chance to build a new future. Betrayal is a deep wound, but it doesn't have to be your death. You can hurt, you can fall, but the important thing is that you stand up because life never stops. Every day is an opportunity to start over, to begin again. Nothing is more important than learning from mistakes, and even more so, that you can keep living, loving, and trusting again.